Welcome to the PowerCat Podcast, the original K-State sports show. Here's your host, Tim Fitzgerald.
Welcome to the Cats and Dogs studio and the PowerCat Podcast. I'm Fitz, joined by my usual sidekicks, Cole Carmody and Ryan Gilbert, to take the questions from Wabash Station. The subscribers at GoPowercat get to ask the questions. Everyone gets to hear the answers, but you probably want to be a subscriber at GoPowercat because there's all kinds of cool stuff. We're doing all kinds of cool VIP stuff, including Cole Carmody's Tale of the Tape, which I'm going to be blunt, isn't getting enough views, Cole. What's going on with these people? Describe what Tale of the Tape is and what we're doing with that.
Yeah, so basically I've picked out a handful of plays. Sometimes it's, 10, 15 plays, depending upon what the game looks like. And I've really kind of gone in and tried to break it down and really show either A, what went right, or B, what went wrong. And, we really don't hold anything back. It is VIP, so you will get my full thoughts and full analysis. And, we look at players, we look at schemes, we look at everything. And it's pretty alarming what Kansas State's going through right now. And I definitely don't hold anything back. And so there's some good, there's some bad, there's a little bit of everything in Tale of the Tape. And obviously I would highly encourage people to check it out because it is my favorite thing that I do for the website. And it's definitely something to monitor as the season goes on.
That's interesting. My favorite thing to do with the website is make fun of Ryan Gilbert. Hi, Gills. How you doing?
Well, I'm bad now that you're here, but I had a great day other than that.
Other than me showing up, it's been a great day. Let's get to the questions from Wabash Station. Let's see if he's got them all in here properly. I bet he doesn't. I bet you screwed up.
Oh, come on. I got it all good.
Okay, here we go. El Camino Cat, whatever happened to win the dang day? El Camino, I thought of this the other day. And pound the stone. They're not pounding stones or winning days.
There's also, I didn't include it. There's a question about the four, was it cornerstones or pillars?
Yeah, that's true. And I haven't heard 1-0, which came up on the Insiders. If you ever watch the Insiders, you need to do it. I don't, look, slogans don't make the difference, but it is kind of weird that because it cuts the chase. You got to win this day. You got to win this game. Don't worry about anything else. Don't worry about tomorrow. Don't worry about the next opponent. And you got that rock, and that rock needs to be pounded. I think that one's less significant than the other two. But, yeah, you guys got any deep thoughts on this? Because I do think it's odd that these things have just kind of evaporated.
Gilbert, I think that I'm going to be quick with this because I have a feeling you have some thoughts about this. I think that that messaging has gone away because they have been so focused on everything else. And instead of going back to the little minute details of, hey, you have to make sure that you are showing up to class and sitting in the front row. You have to make sure that you are, getting a good night's sleep. That's really what we're talking about. Fans might think winning the dang day means practicing, but that's not what Chris Klieman refers to. He refers to winning in all aspects of your life, not just on the football field, not just at practice. And so I don't know if that messaging has gone away in the locker room at all, but it definitely feels like they have been so much more focused on how do we get the best players to Manhattan? How do we win the games? How do we pay them correctly? How do we keep everybody happy? As opposed to, hey, you know what? Our mantra is we are just going to go to work and do what we need to do to win the dang day. I feel like that has kind of gone away because, every college football team's dealing with it, and K-State just so happens to be dealing with it more, it feels like. But the landscape is different, and you know what? It's win the dang day. It feels like hard work, and I don't know how much hard work, this football team is willing to put in right now, and that's kind of my thoughts on it.
I agree with all that, Cole, but specifically the very first part of your answer, you talked about they're focused on other things because the team is just bad, right? Like if Kansas State had good eye discipline against North Dakota, you don't have to worry about every single thought in your mind as a coach is eye discipline. You can actually focus on more parts of managing your team rather than just trying to stop a triple option. So you bring up a darn good point, and that just dawned on me. But my initial, or I guess what I was just going to answer, you kind of touched on it, right? It's so much more than just winning the day, right? Big B, I believe on the Insiders Monday, Fitz, correct me if I'm wrong. Somebody talked about win the rep, right? Win every little thing that you're doing. Kleiman mentioned this in a press conference recently. If you start thinking about the weekend ahead and you are not winning the day that's in front of you, then you're toast. And I would even take that a step further. Every single rep. What are you eating for your meals, right? Cole, you mentioned sitting in the front row of the classroom and getting the right amount of sleep, nutrition. Kleiman, guys, how many times has Kleiman gone on his spiel of Coach Drew with conditioning, Mindy with nutrition, and there's like 4 or 5 like support, not on their sports staff, but those people, coaches, I don't know what they're called, but how many times has he done that in the last couple of weeks? He hasn't. Cole, you bring up a great point that the focus is on so many other things that they're trying to fix in terms of the X's and O's that you're just, I think, simply neglecting those minute details that make you a contender in the Big 12 year in and year out. So it all started with a bad performance on the field, and it has just trickled down in seemingly every area.
And I don't necessarily think, I think you phrased that a lot better than I did. I don't think that I'm not, when I say the lack of hard work, I'm not saying that the players don't want to work hard. I think that the lack of, detail, the lack of focus of detail maybe has gone away because they're so worried about how do we get this win? How do we turn our season around? It's so big picture instead of small picture that those things where you have to be disciplined every single day to do the right thing, maybe that's gone away because they're so focused on trying to just flip their season on a dime. I'll use this reference. It's like when you're down by 7 runs in baseball, there's no such thing as a 7-run home run. You got to get guys on base and you got to drive them in and chip away. And right now it feels like K-State is trying to hit that 7-run home run when they're down by 7, and it doesn't exist.
I miss him saying that. It's on my
Cole
open.
had to get a baseball reference in.
That's right.
Every time I do WIBW radio, they play that clip from his opening press conference where Chris Kleiman says, "You got to win the dang day." It doesn't even sound like him because remember how hoarse he was. But yeah, it's very interesting that these things have gone away. I just won the lunch. I beat some low main.
We had so many questions, so it's tough to include all of them. We appreciate everybody on Wabash, but there are a lot. And there was one, Fitz, I forget exactly what it said, but it was like, Kleiman, does he enjoy coaching, or is he even having fun now? And that's a whole other topic. But Fitz, right, back in the day, so to speak, the enthusiasm, that win the dang day, the just, and I know what happens in a press conference isn't the end all be all, but what we see of him is a lot different now than a couple years ago.
Yeah, it is. It really is. It's I think he's just confused what's going on, and he knows he's got to get it sorted out. That's his job. But the whole aura around the program is different.
Nice.
I'm still trying to get my body right from the previous century. So that entire 20th century stuff was tough on my body. Oh, this guy, Adam K63. What a jackass. Was it a mistake to change to the 3-3-5 this year, Adam? We love you, even though you're a jackass. Cole, I want your opinion on this. I shared my opinion quite a bit. It was a topic that was brought up by Elijah Lee on the Insiders. Again, if you haven't seen it, go see it, go watch it. And by the way, we're trying to put together a second one. We're aiming for a Thursday night live with 4 new players and Ryan Gilbert hosting. So it'll be an entirely different panel. So there's no running over the same path again. Every thought will be fresh. But yeah, Cole, your thoughts on this?
It's a great question, because at the beginning of the season, even after the Iowa State game, I would have said no. I think that I don't think it was a mistake. And guys, I'm not sure that it's going to be a mistake moving forward. You're going to have to go through growing pains, and those growing pains are exasperated right now because of what's been happening with this season. I mean, if K-State's 3-1 and they're giving up the same amount of points that they're giving up, but the offense is better, then I don't think anybody's really questioning that. Like, I think it was always survive the first 4 weeks of the season and get to the bye. I don't really think anybody cares. You look at what they were going to have to do. And I think they brought this up on the Insiders. It was a great point. It was like, okay, well, you're playing Iowa State. You come out and you surprise them with the 4-man front and you hold them to 24 points. If you told me before the season that K-State's going to hold Iowa State to 24 points, I'm going to tell you they're going to win that game. Well, they didn't. Yep. Then you play North Dakota and you come back and you're like, all right, well, you give up 35 points. That's a major question mark, but the excuses are built in, and really you just want to see what your team looks like the following week because of the Ireland trip. And then you come out, you were going to have to play a 4-man front against Army anyway. And so 2 of the 3 weeks you could say, okay, you can look at it and be like, all right, well, what is the real K-State defensively? And then you come out against Arizona and you get gashed with the run, but you're good against the pass. And like, I'm still struggling to kind of look at it like, what is the best part of K-State's defense? Because I'd like to tell you that the pass rush is their best part of the defense. I think that really impacted Noah Fafita on Friday night. He was horrible throwing the ball as far as completion percentage goes. I thought the secondary was actually pretty decent, but the run defense was horrible. And so I don't really know, if it was a mistake, but I know that the inconsistencies are troubling. And so I feel like in order for me to answer this question fully, I'd like to see what the defense looks like the rest of the season, because after 4 games, it really is hard to judge, if it was a mistake for the future of the program. Was it a mistake for the first 4 games? If they're playing the 3-3-5, I think there's a good chance that they win maybe 2 of these games. I'm not saying they win all 4, but maybe they win 2 of them and they're 2-2 instead of 1-3. I don't know. It's hard to say, but as far as the future of the program goes, I'm going to hold out on that because I think it's too early to say yes or no.
Angle that I will take is, even if Kansas State was still in its 3-3-5 from last year, we are going to be having the same conversations, right? And whether it's up in the middle with Damian and Uso or outside with Chidi, Toby, everybody, Cody Stufflebean, everybody needs to be better. But specifically, and I wrote about this on Tuesday, the most disappointing players up to this point in the season. There's a lot of different reasons for why a guy can be disappointing, but when you want to bring a guy like Cody Stufflebean back on the outside, or you want to bring a guy like Uso back on the inside with their 1 extra year, they didn't have to do that, right? You wanted to bring this guy back. And Cole, you mentioned the run defense just being putrid in Tucson. That is all on the trenches. Now, everybody, both sides of the ball, trenches, offensive, everybody needs to be better. But everybody in the trenches needs to be better. But these guys that you're bringing back that are supposed to be, I don't know, leaders on defense, but strong anchors in the trenches, you just haven't seen that. So let alone the schematics, the player, the Jimmies and Joes, like you always say, Cole, right? Like that has to be better. So even if Kansas State was in a 1-9-1 defense, we're having these same conversations no matter what, regardless of the scheme.
Better pick up your linebacker recruiting. Holy crap. K-State in the 1-9-1. Some guy named Ryan Gilbert came up with this. Can't stop a thing. Hey, it was an interesting discussion. Elijah Lee brought it up. And it strikes me that they have taken a linebacker off the field, fairly good athlete, someone that isn't lined up on the ball or on the line of scrimmage that can fly around and make some plays. And they've replaced that with a defensive end playing a defensive tackle spot where he's getting manhandled by a guard. So they've taken a position where K-State, it was Austin Moore's position, would quite often win it, look good from that spot, to a spot where, honestly, that big defensive end moved into tackle has not been effective in any way. They're getting destroyed for the most part. Their speed or quickness is irrelevant in that battle. They're just getting locked up by a guard and holes are getting blown open. You can't change back in midseason and abandon it. But I think they need to be a little more selective on when they do use the 4-man front. They did it for running downs to stop the run. They used to use it against the pass, so they get a pass rush going. Now it's meant to stop the run, and it is failing miserably now that it's on film. Caught Iowa State by surprise. Everyone else has had no problems with it. Granted, Army never broke long runs, but they also picked up enough yardage that they kept getting first downs. This has not worked, and they need to look at it. And I think when Chris Kleiman talks about maybe we're not as talented as we thought, I think this might be a spot that he's saying maybe these guys weren't as good as we thought, and they can't go inside and play, that off defensive tackle. The other guys are built for the nose tackle spot, and they do a good job. I just think losing that third linebacker has been devastating, ironically, for the run defense in many ways.
Before we go on, I think I've kind of figured this out in my mind, Fitz.
Yeah.
In spring practice, who do those defensive tackles go up against? You go up against your own team. And what position has Kansas State struggled with mightily on the offensive side?
Guard.
It's the offensive line, and more specifically the offensive guards. And so you're right. Maybe they looked at that and they said, well, we think our offensive line's pretty good. So if our defensive line is kicking their ass, then that must mean our defensive linemen are really good. When in reality, it's more of an indication on the offensive line. And so it's the offensive line who isn't very good instead of the defensive line being good. And so, I think that there is something to that. And, essentially what you did is you said, okay, we believe that Cody Stufflebean is better at stuffing the run than Gabe Powers, than Asa Newsome, right? Because Des Purnell and Austin Romaine were going to be on the field no matter what. And so you took off that third linebacker and you put on that extra defensive lineman. I don't necessarily think it was a bad idea. You're right. I actually really like the 4-down in pass rush situations because they couldn't get pressure with 3-man anyway. They were blitzing. They were bringing a fourth guy in pass rushing situations. You might as well put your 4 best on the field to go get the quarterback.
Yep.
But then when you're stopping the run, it's pretty obvious that another linebacker out there still helps you as opposed to an undersized defensive tackle. But I think that mistake was in the spring when they thought they had good defensive linemen, when in reality, the offensive line was just a few steps behind.
Let me put it in a way that I think Ryan Gilbert will best understand this. Ryan Gilbert's in a room with 5 other dudes, and Ryan Gilbert is clearly the best looking guy in the room. Clearly, we all know it. Does that mean he's good looking? No, it might mean the other 5 dudes are just flat out ugly. Back. And that's kind of where I am. I think that's my ineloquent way of saying what you just said, Cole. They were measuring against a failed tool to measure with, that being the offensive line, and that this is effective against our offensive line, not realizing the offensive line's really bad. I don't know how you don't realize that, but that's how it kind of worked out.
Mm-hmm.
You're a very, very handsome man, Ryan Gilbert. Onward we go. Don't touch my Willie. Always good advice when you're around Ryan Gilbert. And Climate words. I'm sorry, Gills. I'm just in the mood. Last year's win at Tulane was a culture win. Oh, I love this. In the last 9 games, they're only 2-7. What happened to the culture that gets wins? What is wrong with the culture? I think it's a legitimate question. I mean, was beating North Dakota culture win because you came back and did that? I think it's easy to say right now there is a culture issue, though. They've lost track of who they are and what K-State football is supposed to be about. I don't think there's any doubt in my mind. There isn't a positive culture right now within this team. Trey Spivey called them out about hanging their heads on the sidelines, and we saw it happen. It's impossible to get mad at a kid that transferred who observed something that is 100% accurate, although he was part of the problem. And then he almost got his head hung by Logan Bartley, but that's a different story. I just don't think the culture is developed enough with this team. They don't know who really they are, what they're about, how they win games, how they stop the opponent, where their strength is, where their weakness is, because there's so many weaknesses. Which one do you pick? There doesn't seem to be many strengths. So, yeah, I would say culture is an issue right now.
What is wrong with the culture is a great question, because there's obviously something that's wrong. And I don't personally buy into the the only reason that Kleiman had success is because he had the Snyder players, and they had the Snyder. Like I don't buy into that. And I know
not after 6-7 years. It's silly.
There's a lot of people who've said that, but I really don't buy into that. So
after 2020, that argument is completely invalid.
Correct.
After a bad season.
Right. So, I mean, he changed the culture of that locker room. Like he did. They completely changed the way that they did things, and it worked. And so it has worked. They're 2-7 in their last 9 games. That is a fact. So what is wrong? I would love to sit here and tell you. I think Chris Kleiman would love to be able to tell you this is what's gone wrong, because if he knew, he'd be able to at least have a better chance of fixing it. But the reality of the situation is nobody knows. And so it's going to be something that they have to look at, obviously, on this bye week. But how do they fix it, right? Like, where do they go from here? And to me, what I see right now is I see a team that doesn't know how to win.
Yeah.
And that is so different. It's just different compared to what we've seen with Chris Kleiman teams, because how many times have we seen Chris Kleiman teams of the past get down, come back and win? Think about that 2022 team. They lost to Tulane. Everybody had them down and out. And then, they get a big lead on Oklahoma. Oklahoma comes storming back. K-State holds them off. They end up winning and completely change the trajectory of their season. Like, those teams knew how to stop it right where it was. They knew how to make the plays when it mattered the most. It wasn't always pretty, but they knew how to get it done. And even the following year's team, right? Like, even that team that had Will Howard at quarterback, they weren't great. They weren't amazing. They were definitely not as talented as I think a lot of people thought they were, but they even found a way to win some close games. I think about that Texas game that year where they were down by a bunch of points and they made a ton of plays. They stayed right in the game and they came back, had a chance to win it at the end. They didn't, but they gave themselves a chance. If K-State were to play a good team right now and get down by 3 or 4 scores, it's over, right? Like, it's over. It doesn't matter who they're playing. And so that resiliency has gone away, and I don't know when that started. I don't know how that started. But if they want to try and find a way to salvage the season, they have to just develop that mindset of who cares. And right now, they're so focused on the end result that they forgot how to get that end result of winning.
K-State is, in fact, 2-7 in its last 9 games. But, guys, Kansas State is 2 field goals, 6 points away from being winless in its last 9 times out on the field. So we all remember how bad North Dakota was. But that Rate Bowl, K-State was down double digits in the second half, multiple scores. I think it was 14 or 17 points. So it's bad now. I think if K-State doesn't make those plays in those games. But with culture, and I feel like I'm just regurgitating everything from the insiders on Monday because it was such a great show. But it was talked about with, what's your why, right? Do you want to go make millions of dollars in the NFL and you're trying to prove yourself now? Are you trying to get it for your family? Are you a Kansas kid and you just grew up loving Kansas State? Or you have a chip on your shoulder because you didn't have a star from 24/7 Sports on your recruiting ranking? Like, what's your why? Over the years, Chris Kleiman's had a lot of players that are just very, very, very motivated. You'd rather say whoa than sick 'em with a lot of those players. Now, I don't know. I've got my money. I'm good enough. I've got my NIL check. I'm set. Why do I need to work hard?
And Fitz, before you jump in here, like, Gilbert, you bring up a good point about the Rate Bowl, but I actually think kind of that goes back towards the resiliency, right? Like, they lost all those games in a row, and then they found a way, even when it looked like they were going to lose again, to come back and win. And so I actually think that kind of is the opposite, right? Like, that's why this issue this year is so alarming, is because we've seen this happen to these teams before, and then they come back, but they haven't come back yet. So I think that's where the problem is.
I assume this is where you're getting at. Kansas State did turn things around against Arizona with a big run from Jace Brown, and you take advantage of a special teams blunder from Arizona. And then that was it.
Yes.
K-State's third quarter against North Dakota was good. It was very good. And then that was it. So that's, again, Cole, I think that's what you're pointing at. That's the problem. Keep your foot on the gas.
They don't seem to lock in and stay the course.
Nope.
It's the darndest thing I've ever seen. Here we go. GoPowercat up in the Upper Peninsula. I learned that from him. I like it. Which, with all the changes going on in college sports and realignment always looming, is this the worst possible time for K-State football to tank? Well, if it's prolonged, yes. Nothing's going to disastrous come out of one bad year. Now, if you pick your bad year in the specific year of realignment, it could. But I always come back to this. And I think it's a good time to talk about this because of what's happening on the field. Does Kansas State want to blindly compete in the highest level, where it'll go against schools with much larger enrollment, many more resources, including recruiting territory, much more developed history, and bigger brands, and certainly blue bloods, which Kansas State will never be? Is that who you want to hang out with? Or do you want to stay in that middle division that'll be created? It's going to be more of a group of 6 type environment. The money will be less, the prestige will be less, but you're going to win football games. You're not going to turn into Nebraska, which I still say, if Nebraska had never left the Big 12 and never left Texas recruiting behind, they wouldn't be in this position. But they are, because they abandoned what helped make them great, and they thought they could just carry it into a new conference where nobody feared them. No, it hasn't worked for them, and I think it's a legit question K-State will need to address. Is it possible, even with increased TV revenue, that a school like Kansas State can keep up in an arms race? I think the answer is probably no, but that's never been K-State either. It's always been the fighter, the scrappy one, the one that overcomes the odds, which brings us back to this team. That's why people are pissed. This team is none of that. They've abandoned entirely the institutional role or description of what the football program is. The little guy that can beat you up. Now you're the little guy who has no fight in your tank. It's awful to watch.
Let me ask you guys this question. Does Oklahoma State have any less value today than they did 3 years ago in realignment? To me, I feel like the answer is no. Like, I feel like you would still, that's not a program you look at. You're like, oh, they've been horrible for 2 years. So we were going to add them 3 years ago, but we're not going to add them now. So
yeah, I don't think it's anytime soon.
No. So, I mean, like, they would have to be, again, they would have to be 2-10 this year, next year, and the year after for me to say that, oh, they're not a good football program anymore. They're not a program that you want to be associated with. I want Oklahoma State in whatever conference that K-State's in, because I think that they bring a lot of value. And I think K-State brings a lot of value. So I think this question is valid, no doubt about it. But if you're asking about this question based off of a 4-game sample size, I mean, like, pump the brakes a little bit. Sure, if this goes on, that's fine. But for 4 games, like, no, I'm not saying that K-State is doomed for the rest of their existence because they have one bad season, because they have, 4 bad games. Like, yeah, if this continues, it's going to be awful for fans. It's going to be horrible to sit through. It's going to be horrible to watch. It's not going to be a lot of fun to cover. We will, but it's not going to be a good time for anyone involved with the program. But that doesn't make the university, that doesn't make the program any less valuable than it was 365 days ago, because since Bill Snyder took over in 1989, this has been one of the most consistent programs in the Big 12 Conference, and those are facts. You can't argue with facts.
Yep.
I'll keep this short and sweet, guys, but the question says Kansas State and realignment, right? If you flip it to Chris Kleiman and roster management, NIL, portal, all that stuff, 1,000,000% this is the worst possible time for it to be happening for a coach like him. With what he did at North Dakota State, you can't argue the success he had. right now, this is just like getting hit by a nuclear bomb for somebody like him and the way that he was able to have success with the program.
I agree. Well put. Next up, Buccaneers Cat 1786. Can we stop using the narrative that the run element of Avery's game has been coached out of him? No coach in America tells their quarterback not to run. And I don't think that's the message. I think the message has been only run if you have to in situations. Only run if you're going to be protected. They've almost given him too complex instructions here, because in the moment, you got to be able to play. We have seen him get out of the pocket, searched for an open receiver, and have 5 yards, 10 yards in front of him when he can pick up. Instead, he'll throw the ball away or throw it into coverage. I don't think they've told him not to run. I just don't think he understands when he should and shouldn't run. And he's a mess. I think this has not been coached out of him. It's been confused out of him. He's not making that instantaneous decision that you have to make on the football field. Decisions he made when he was a freshman. You go back and watch some of those cuts he made against Texas Tech or earlier in the year. Very definitive. See an opening, bam. That's what impressed me. He had these running back instincts where he sensed open spaces on the field and he got through them in a very fast way. He's not doing that. He's hesitating every time he sees an opening and trying to decide if he goes through it or not. And that's a good way to fail. He's got to just return to, I can't get this. Boom, I'm gone. I'm going to get 3 yards. Because you get 3 yards instead of an incompletion, you're going to have a first down probably, the way this offense has been running. They're just not quite good enough. They're just a yard or two short so often. He's got to continue to try to make positive plays for his offense, whether it's with his legs or his arm, and understand the moment. This is the moment when I got to put my shoulder down. I got to dive over the top of these guys. I got to give it all, because if we don't get this first down here on this wet field in Dublin, we're going to lose. No, it's, protecting himself. We saw probably the most valuable quarterback in the world right now, Patrick Mahomes, lower his shoulder the other night, run over someone, and then skirt the edge and dive for the pylon. Avery ain't doing either one of those right now. He just won't. And he's got 1/1,000,000th of the value of Patrick Mahomes. If Patrick Mahomes gets hurt, the Chiefs season is down the tubes. Might already be going there, but he knows when to risk that. He's not doing it in the second quarter on second down when he's got another down to pick up a first down. Not doing that. When he does run in those situations, he picks up a yard or two and gets the hell out of bounds and protects himself. Avery's situational awareness right now is atrocious. Atrocious. Whether it's third down or a fourth down and the game's on the line, don't throw a rocket unless you're going to drill it into the guy's gut where he can't drop it. You got to put a little touch on it if you're going to have problems with your accuracy. And it's hard for everyone says if you touch the ball, you should be able to catch it. Man, he just threw a fastball from about 30 feet and you're supposed to hit it. I don't know. Why did I do a baseball metaphor? What happened there? Oh my goodness.
All right, I'm brainwashing you.
I know. Anyhow, someone else go. I'm really frustrated with this whole topic. Not the topic, but the situation.
No doubt. And you talk about Mahomes, and that was just kind of something I watched all weekend long with, the NFL in general, right? Like these quarterbacks are laying it on the line every single game, and they understand full well that if they get hurt, that impacts their team. Those coaches know if their quarterbacks get hurt. That's the thing about college football. The second string quarterback in college compared to the second string in the NFL, the second string in college is so much closer to being the starter in college than in the NFL. because there is a significant drop off between the top 32 quarterbacks and the bottom 32 quarterbacks in the NFL. In college, it's not like that. Now, K-State's obviously a little bit different. Well, we think we don't even know who the number 2 quarterback is at this point. But with Avery specifically, I feel like he almost has so much trust in his receivers that he is willing to not run because he feels like if he puts the ball near them, then those guys are going to make a play. And so I don't necessarily think it's selfish by Avery to not run and try and, I think a lot of people look at it and they say, oh, he's not running because he's afraid to get hit. I don't think that's true. I almost feel like he's to the point, and this has been coached to him, where it's like, hey, if this guy is 50-50, if you can throw a 50-50 ball, throw a 50-50 ball and give your receiver a chance to make a play, as opposed to one's not there, two's not there, there's a lane, I'm gone. Because if you watch Patrick Mahomes, he's playing quarterback right now like he knows his receivers suck. Because guess what? They do, right? They do. I'm not saying Avery Johnson needs to play like that, but he needs to understand, if my first read's not open, my second read's not open, my third read should be my legs, because that is the best opportunity for my team to make a play. And maybe he does feel like that. Maybe he feels like that, but he's been coached. Go through your progressions. If it's not there, scramble, look to throw the ball. Then if there's nothing there, then you can use your legs. I'm over the designed quarterback runs, guys, because the offensive line is not putting him in a good position to have any kind of success with the quarterback runs. If K-State attempts 3 quarterback runs a game, that's fine by me unless it's successful. Don't try and beat a dead horse if it's not going to work. Where I think that he can use his legs more effectively is on the scrambles. And those can turn into really big plays, especially if K-State continues, I'm getting football nerdy here, especially if K-State continues to work the downfield throws and teams are going to play man coverage. You send guys on post routes, on go routes. There's nobody there in the secondary to stop Avery Johnson from making one guy miss and turning a 5-yard gain into a 25-yard gain because all the receivers and defenders are down the field. So I think that he needs to maybe focus less on his receivers and more on his, okay, this guy's not open, I'm running.
You guys make me laugh with your Patrick Mahomes talk. As a Steelers fan, watching 89-year-old Aaron Rodgers try to move in the pocket, let alone run, is comical. But Avery needs to know that he is capable of being a superstar. Yes. And I think he's in his own head right now, because when you're playing at Mays against Cole, give me a mediocre team in the Wichita area that he played in high school, right?
He would play. How about Goddard?
That's what I was going to say.
You are the superstar on the field, and you can juke any of those defenders. You are faster than them. You're Superman out there. Now you're playing up against Big 12 opponents. It's tough. It is. Cole's got to fly in his room.
Yeah, where's dude? I need dude.
It's tough. It is very tough, but that doesn't mean you back away from it and that you shy away from it. That can't deter you. Oh, I thought I was going to get clear on this, but somebody tracked me down. That is the cost of doing business, but you can't that can't be what makes you shy away from taking that chance with your legs. So I think he's in his own head just a little bit. He's got to remember that he is still an athlete that can make those crazy plays. Right now, I feel like Avery Johnson is thinking to himself, man, like whenever I run it, not whenever every time, but sometimes when I run it, it doesn't work out. And that is the cost of doing business, but your high upside is what makes it worth the risk. If that makes sense, right?
Do you remember when Skylar Thompson was quarterback and everyone was saying, stay in the pocket, because he had this tendency to roll out to the right and then run. And everybody said, stay in the pocket. And then he got hurt. And then he turned into a pocket passer because he couldn't get out and run. It's the exact opposite with Avery Johnson. Avery Johnson doesn't get outside of the pocket, and he should be getting outside of the pocket. So I don't know where to go, guys, but I'm going to plug Tail of the Tape as my last thing here. I did a breakdown of the 4th down play against Arizona, and oh my God, guys, I'm telling you, if he would have just took off to the right, there's nobody there. And it's one of those things to where that maybe was an instinct of him before, but somewhere along the line that changed. And I don't know why. I don't know who did it. Maybe it was Avery. Maybe it was the coaching staff. but he needs to get that back. And if he gets that back, then the offense will be so much better, not just because they're getting those yards, but because it just opens up another element of this offense.
My final thought before we move to the 2-minute drill. We always talk about in basketball or football, the game slows down for you as, you get more experience. It hasn't for Avery. He looks just as unsettled this season in decision-making as he did last season. And maybe that's because he doesn't have the same level of reliability with an offensive line. He can't feel settled back there. But it's almost as if he can't get past that obstacle of the panic decision, the poor decision, when to run, when to throw, who to throw it to, how to get it there. Is it double coverage? Do I see the guy underneath? It's like he's got all this going on, and there's no clear focused voice leading him through the progression. It's just noise right now. At least that's what it appears to be.
A lot of quarterbacks, like when they have happy feet and they finally learn to settle in and just trust your offensive line, then you're a much better player. But Avery Johnson, this is not his fault. I don't think he can trust his offensive line right now.
Yep. Okay, the 2-minute drill, and the 2-minute drill might suffer a demise here because we're not getting any questions for it. This is an okay one, not quite up to the standards of the absurdity we're seeking, but Mr. Tossback asks us, what are your thoughts on the football atmosphere at Arizona? That's my answer.
He was yawning for those of you listening on the podcast.
Twice the enrollment, right, Gills? That's Kansas State. And
50,000, more than twice, I think.
Yeah, more than twice, and less than 50% of the student body size that attended a game. I don't even know what the student body area was, but I bet it was about a third as many students as attend Kansas State games, which is, I don't know, 8,000, 10,000. What do you think the student body is? 12? 10,000. Let's just say 10,000. Yeah. That might have been 3. Give them 4. It was crazy. And they announced the attendance as almost a sellout.
There was nobody there on TV.
There was nobody there. It wasn't even half full. Tonight's attendance is 48,000. Like, my ass, it's 48,000. It's between 4,000 and 8,000, more likely. I thought maybe the transfer portal's out of control. I wondered if the old attendance counter from KU had transferred to Arizona. 48,000, including 20,000 fans that are invisible. It was nuts. There was no atmosphere. That was the easiest road environment in the Big 12, honestly, I've ever seen. Honestly. For Kansas State, when K-State rolls into Lawrence, they get an environment. There's a lot of K-Staters there, but K fans get after it. Both of them.
Well, maybe it was hot in Tucson. That's why K-State lost, Fitz.
Well, it's probably their trip back from Hawaii in the basketball season 5 years ago.
I say this respectfully to Kansas State. The meal, pregame media meal, was good. A lot better than Kansas State's. And that was what Fitz, our third chicken sandwich of that day. We didn't plan that out the best. But what I'll say, Fitz, like we were talking about this, I think, after the game. There is no, like the Arizona Cardinals are not a powerhouse in that area.
Yeah.
Diamondbacks, like the door is open for Arizona football to be something that people around there love. And it's baffling that it's just not.
They like Arizona State. They like winners.
Fair enough.
I mean, I don't know, but I do love having the Arizona schools, the Utah schools in the Big 12. Colorado.
It's nice to look at some mountains.
I know. It's lovely. We've got Tucson, we've got Boulder, we've got Salt Lake City, we've got Provo, and we got Morgantown. We got a lot of mountains in this conference.
Don't include Boulder in that, though. We don't want to hype them up too much.
I like the Rocky Mountains.
Yeah, everything else about the trip to Colorado was not enjoyable for us.
Well, it was for me. If you know what I mean. That's it for this edition of the Questions Podcast, a regular old, good old PowerCat Podcast. I'm going to sneak in another one later in the week because it's an off week, and you folks need a lot of K-State talk to get you through. And once again, we're hoping to put together a panel for Thursday night, another live event of the Insiders for different players and a different host discussing many of the same topics. And I thought the other show the other night might have been the best video product we've ever produced by far. And I think a big reason is why is there was less of us and more guys that actually really know what they're talking about. I felt like I talked too much. And at one point, Monty Spiller started hosting. I'm like, this is the easiest gig I've ever gotten. Monty's down dishing out questions. I'm like, I'm just sitting here riding along. It was beautiful. It was fun. It's an amazing podcast. Those guys were incredible. And oh my, Elijah Lee, that was quality content. He said everything that was on his mind and didn't hold back. I'm going to end this podcast now, and I hope you have a good day. And remember this, at least you're not Ryan Gilbert.
This has been a GoPowercat.com and Spirit Street production. Please support this show by subscribing to this YouTube channel or follow us on your favorite podcast platform.